login. Turn that into a function. And I want to import all of the stuff I need from Firebase for that. So I might have to change a couple of things that I'm exporting here in Firebase.js. Yeah, so I've got sign in, so I should actually change that and make it a bit more specific and say sign in with GitHub. This is something I did in the past, so I was experimenting with getting signing in with GitHub working, which was surprisingly simple. This is kind of nice. So we're signing in with GitHub, so let's say sign in with email password, I guess we'll call that. Come down here, paste that in. It doesn't like that this is not being used, so let's save that. And in the index page, which is where I was playing around with this, that's no longer going to work now. So I might actually just get rid of all of this because I'm not really playing with this anymore. We're trying to build something a bit more solid. So I'll get rid of that and just put a comment in there on the index page. All right, so now let's go back to that register page and let's just see if we can make it console log something when the user presses a register button. And now we'll wrap this in a card as well, q-card, and also a q-card-section. And then I guess I'll throw the button under here, q-button, no, btn. One of the reasons I really like to separate my button from the form is, first of all, it keeps the forms really naked, which is usually a good rule of thumb to try and follow. But it also means that I can do different styling with the button to the form. It means I haven't coupled the styling of my button to my email register form in this case. So now I can come in here and say register, and let's set the color equal to primary. We'll make it unelevated. Save it. My linter will make that pretty. And another thing I'll do is say class is equal to full-width. And there we go. Now we get our register button. And see how it's kind of hitting the edges there? I wouldn't be able to do that if I put it inside of the form, unless I made like a login card. But then it makes it the component even less flexible. So that's why I try and pull the button out of the form itself. And that's possible because all this is doing is basically modeling the form. It's a really nice way to code that I've started trying to do lately. So now we can come in here and say @click is equal to, I guess we'll call this handle login. And there we go. Let's just check if this is clicking okay. Come up here, clicked. There we go. That's working fine. All right, so what's the next thing to do? Next thing, we want to actually take this data and use it in order to register an account with Firebase. So let's come over to Firebase. And I'm going to I'll go to my console. Before I go to my console, though, I'm actually going to throw this on the left screen in case it starts showing some sensitive data. So sorry, this is going to be a little bit boring for a moment. I'll put it on the code screen. That's probably more interesting for you to look at while I figure this out. So I'm jumping into my Firebase app. I'm going into the authentication section, sign in method, and I'm going to add a new provider in here. And I'll quickly show you what that looks like because this seems to be safe. So I'm going to go to this add new provider section here to add a new provider. Here we go. Oh, I got a comment. Why Vue.js core team developer hardly talks about Quasar, but talks often on Nuxt.js? Does that mean they aren't much aware of Quasar framework? Are you talking about me? When you say Vue.js core team developer? Oh, obviously I'm not, so... Well, I don't know, to be honest. Nuxt.js, they're just completely different frameworks. So Nuxt.js has a much larger breadth of audience than Quasar does, simply because it's doing less than Quasar is trying to do. And in general, the more generalized a framework, the larger your audience is going to be because you can hit a larger market. So Quasar is doing stuff that is a lot more specific. It's trying to offer you more of a developer experience than Nuxt is. And well, anyway, this is just my opinion, by the way, but that means that less people are going to choose Quasar. For example, maybe they don't want to do material design, or maybe they don't care about exporting to different platforms, and for that reason, they might not notice Quasar. And look, honestly, it's just like some things simply become more popular for whatever reason than others. I don't really understand the marketing behind it. I think Quasar is an outstanding framework. Um, it honestly blows my mind every single day, and I think it's an absolute joy to develop in. I've developed in Nuxt and I've developed in Quasar. I personally prefer working with Quasar, but I can understand, for example, if you wanted to focus more on design in your, like, you wanted to design things from scratch yourself, you might want to choose Nuxt. Or maybe you want to use Bootstrap, for example. Then you're not going to use Bootstrap with Quasar. That doesn't really make sense. So you can kind of do a few more matchups like that with something like Nuxt that you wouldn't really do with Quasar. So that kind of makes something like Nuxt become a lot more popular, or it's at least got the potential to be more popular than Quasar. What does surprise me, though, is that Gridsim isn't more popular, because Gridsim is a really outstanding framework, and it's kind of an alternative to something like Gatsby. And I actually prefer using Gridsim to using Nuxt, but, you know, people like what they like. I adore Quasar. If people want to use Nuxt, then go ahead and use Nuxt. I also like using Nuxt. And actually, another thing that I should probably point out is Nuxt is a lot simpler to get up and running with. Actually, I'm not sure I'd say that. Honestly, I think Quasar is, because it's already got a component library that is ridiculously intuitive. But Nuxt does enforce a folder structure that's very similar to pure HTML, CSS, JavaScript website. You know, like the folder structure very much mimics, you know, the URL structure that you get at the top of your website. And I think that might make it a little bit easier for newbies that don't have a lot of experience coding. Whereas Quasar is usually for someone who's going to want to do a much more data-heavy website. So with Nuxt, you might build something like a blog. With Quasar, I would build a blog with it, but you might need like a little bit more knowledge to do it the right way using Quasar. I don't know. I'm just making guesses here. But yeah, it doesn't really matter to me. Use what makes the most sense to you. And Quasar's not going anywhere. It's got a huge user base, and the team is extremely active. So yeah, if you like Nuxt, use Nuxt. If you like Quasar, use Quasar. All right, anyway, I've spoken enough on that. I'm going to add a new provider here, which is an email/password provider. And click on enable here. And they've got the passwordless sign-in option. I'm not going to bother enabling that. I don't really see the point. I don't know if it's going to make me do extra work, so I'm not going to do it just in case. All right, so you could have seen that. Let me just quickly show you the screen. So basically what I did there is I just added the email/password option for signing in with Firebase. So, wow, that was really simple. I think the only thing I need to do now is let's come into our Firebase config. Oops. I should not have flashed that on the screen. Actually, it doesn't matter, because technically that code would sit on the client side anyway, so there's nothing secret in there. So we got sign in with GitHub. We also want the option to sign in with email password. So let's see if I can find that. Email auth provider. All right, I think it's as simple as that. And I'm going to guess that the API is pretty similar. So instead of that, we go sign in with pop-up. Can I just do that and say email auth provider? Or is it not going to let me use a pop-up in that regard? What's this logo trying to be accessed? Oh, okay. Whoops. I really like this. I like that this code is so clean, by the way. That's like gorgeous to me, that my form is literally just like a V model. I'm really proud of that. So I'll refresh the page here. I can probably cross out of that now. And what was the next part? Does that mean they aren't much aware of Quasar? No, they're definitely aware of it. Everyone on the core team is going to know what Quasar is, especially if you're on the Vue core team. Um, so I guess the next thing I do is just see if I can import that in and start using it. So what have I called it here? I've called it sign in with email password. Sign in with email password. So that's now being imported. And I think I can just do this, sign in with email password, and just call it like that. You wouldn't do this with a pop-up, would you? It wouldn't really make sense. Unless they then give you an email password pop-up, and I've just wasted my time building out this form. Let's see what that does. Is not supported for this operations OAuth providers. All right, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of digging online here. So let's look up Firebase email password login. And hopefully there's a really nice tutorial that's just going to run me through it without any fluff. To let users yup, before you're logging at Firebase, yup, create a password-based account. Okay, auth.create user with email and password. All right, so let's come back down here and we'll basically mimic the wording they're using there. So let me just copy that. Create user with email and password. And it looks like they've just said auth dot create user with email and password, and then you send it through the email and the password. So let's have this basically proxy that email password. And the reason I'm proxying it is because it means I can add extra things in here if I ever need to for whatever reason, rather than just exporting this directly. But honestly, you could probably just export that directly in this case. But let's do this. And I might actually just turn this into a function like so to make it a little bit more readable. And I might return that because I'm guessing it's going to give me a promise back or something that I can work with. So let's change this to create user with email and password. Do it there as well. And now all I should have to do is pass through the email and the password. And before I do that, I'll obviously check the password confirm, but we can deal with that later on. So let's pass through there form.value.email and then form.value.password. And there we go. That's getting a bit long for me. I really hate it when things start reaching the edge of my editor, so I'm going to make sure that I sort of space it out a bit better. What are we getting here? Email auth provider is assigned a value but never used. Where am I doing that? Oh, okay. Am I doing this the right way? This is making me a bit nervous that maybe I'm not. All right, anyway, we'll give it a crack and see what happens. So, by the way, I've only just started reading the doc, so no doubt something else is going to show up there that I might have gotten wrong. So let's try, I don't know, Luke at ldbold.com, secret. Actually, I should probably use a legit password there because otherwise you watching from home can log in as me. Not that it really matters. Okay. Email already in use. Okay, that looks like that this is starting to work. So I have to figure out how to use this error. I don't like the way these errors are being handled. Like, it'd be nice if I got like an error bag or something like that that's a little bit easier to manipulate to sort of like display. So this kind of means I might actually have to deal with each error independently and figure out how to display that to the user, which sort of sucks, but whatever. Let's try my Quasarcast one. Luke at quasarcast.com. Put in a password there. Nice. All right. No errors. So what I might do is go back to the console. From memory, you know what? I might actually control click that because I'm getting the feeling we might need this in a second. All right. So it does actually show you a little bit of how you might. Well, that's not really helpful, is it? Okay, then it shows you how to do signing out as well. So we probably want to implement that. Whoops, get out of that. But let's come in here and see that actually sign me up. Authentication. There we go. Link at quasarcast.com. Cool. So now I've got a user ID. The last thing I want to do is actually create a user with that user ID. And so there's two ways to go about this. This is another thing that's kind of annoying me about Firebase. The best way to do it, in my opinion, would be to basically trigger a cloud function whenever a user registers that creates that user in Firestore. So if you look at my Firestore data here, basically you want to then create a user so you can start easily storing data on that user. So you can scope that data and basically keep it safe so that other users can't access this user's data, which is kind of important. The problem is that currently the way you have to do it is make the user to essentially create themselves. And that's okay because you simply create a rule that means the user can't do that in a malicious way. But it kind of feels weird to me that a user registers on your app and then registers themselves by basically hitting this endpoint. I'd rather they register and then they're automatically created on our system via a cloud function. But anyway, that's not going to happen. So I've basically got this rule in here that says if the user is authenticated and the user's user ID, the authenticated user's user ID, is the one that they're trying to set here, so that they can't essentially create a user that is not themselves. So anyway, that's kind of how I've dealt with that. That's how people seem to be doing it online. I think it's a bit funky. And the reason I can't do the cloud function one is because you actually have to set up a credit card. And in a tutorial series, you don't want to tell people that they need to set up a credit card. So basically, I had to sort of say no to that option. All right, so we've basically got that working now. I can close out of that. I can close out of that. I can close out of that. Very nice. Now we want to, I don't know, do I bother with password confirmation? Yeah, I kind of want to do things properly here. So how about we add a function here that says validate password, and we'll stick with that. We'll do some very basic password validation. So we want to say form.value. Or should we bring in a validator? No, you know what? Actually, I want to push this work of validating things to... Do I want to push it to another tutorial series? Okay, so we'll give them a hint of what you can do by basically ensuring that these passwords are identical, but then push them to another tutorial series and say basically we'll handle, advanced validation stuff in another series. That's probably the best thing to do. I don't know. You know what? Screw it. Let's pull in a library like Validators. I'm pretty sure that's what Quasar recommends. Oh, that's for Vue.js 2. Okay. Maybe Vue use has got some validators. Let's go to auth function. Valid. No. Okay, so Vue 3 validation, and the other thing is maybe just like a JavaScript validation library. Really, you want a functional validation library. JavaScript functional validation library. Declarative way of validating JavaScript. Okay, that's not what we're looking for. Validation built through composition. It's not very popular, but okay, so maybe we need to specify functional form validation library. Form validation. Okay, this one looks pretty good. Node can be used as, all right, that sounds good. Oh, you have to pay for it. Seriously? Okay. For a validation library? That seems bizarre. Gosh, maybe I should get into the validation library building business. All right, what else have we got? No, I'm not interested in that. Actually, maybe this is the kind of thing we're looking for. Validate JS. I basically just want really simple functions that you call. All right, let's take a look at that. I didn't think I'd end up scrolling through a list. In this stream. All right, I guess we'll take a look at V8N. That one looks good. Revalidate as well. All right. Now let's just quickly smash through some of these. Validate JS, I'm thinking about. String.maxLength. Okay, that looks nice to me. Okay. I don't like the fact that I have to use this test is valid thing though. I just want functions that you literally pass it through to. Min length 5. This looks kind of nice. All right, so if it's an array, yeah, okay, I don't mind this. So I'm going to put that in the maybe pile. Maybe the ones at the right are the maybe pile. Revalidate. Creating and composing together small validation functions to create complex. All right, so do I like this API though? No, this feels a little bit much to me. And I can't use Validate because no, that's too much. Okay, this has left me wondering, do I really bother this much with validation? I remember I used to use vValidate. Actually, vValidate has changed. Maybe I should take a look at that. It used to use what's it called? It used to use what are those things you use in line? It used to use like attributes, directives. That's what they're called. The document of Vue 3.0. Okay, so this is now working on Vue 3.0. Let's see how it looks. Field. Validate. Okay. Then does it come with a library of validators as well? Oh yeah, so 25 plus rules. Nice. They got composition API examples. Creates a form field with this validation state. You will use this inside your, okay. All right, this, I think I'm actually liking vValidate. This might be the best option. So it has got that nice integration. You get the error message. So I'm just thinking with Quasar, what would that look like? That would be easy to pass through, and then you just need to know if the individual field is not valid. Yeah, okay. I just want something I can very quickly show people how to use when they're working with Firebase. All right, so let's go ahead and just get this installed and see how it goes. Set up. vCreate. No, I don't want any of that. I just want to install vValidate. So let's go like this. We'll go yarn add vValidate. And I don't really want to go through the guide. I just want to look at validation using the composition API. I guess I should read this properly. You'll be using the following composition. Use field creates a form field. You will use this inside your custom input components. Okay, so it sounds like if you have an individual input component, you can use this use field. All right. Use form creates a v, validates form context and associates any fields created with use. Okay, that's pretty cool. Any fields created with use field inside the same component. I don't fully understand that, but I'm sure it'll make more sense. You can create a simple field and validate it in a couple of lines. All right then. Showing me the sandbox. The way I do it, I don't think I would use field level validation. At least that's what I'm thinking for the moment. So what do they got here? App.view. So they've got a validate field function. Honestly, this is pretty much what Quasar does under the hood anyway. All right, I might be going along the wrong path here. So let me just quickly think about what this would look like if I did it with Quasar's validation. So I guess the first thing you'd do is you'd have some sort of a validate method sitting on email register form. So let's come in here. And have, for example, validate password. And then we're going to receive in there the password. And then I guess this would just be for the top password. And then I could say, for example, return password dot length, or maybe just an if statement. So if password dot length is greater than hang on, the way a Quasar does it is with an array of validators. So you need to say what the specific validator is so you get the right message. So instead of validate password, you'd have to be more specific. So validate passwords same. Let's go with that. And we'll say password is equal to, and then we'll say I guess we get it from the prop then. We'll say props dot password underscore confirm. then we return true. So that's in a valid state. Otherwise, we're going to return the message here, which is passwords must match. Let's go with that. So validate passwords same. Now let's see if I can remember how to do this without looking at the docs. I think you say, for example, rules. Yep, there it is. And now you have a function in here. And it's usually got an OR operator. So maybe I'm actually supposed to just do it like this. Return that, or I could probably make that cleaner, but or that. So we take in the value and then we say validate password same and pass it through the value. Actually, might not have to do that way. I might be able to just pass through the function directly, actually. So let's come over here and just see what happens. Passwords must match. All right, I definitely made them the same then, but I could quickly get rid of this just to confirm it. Validate passwords same. It's sending through the value, which is the password, and it's comparing it. Oh, not props. Silly me. Props.model value dot password confirmation. So here we go. Let's go. And there we go. So that's password. Honestly, this might actually be simple enough. And then you can start showing, and then I don't have to bring in a whole new library. Yeah, I think I went overboard with the whole library thing. And Quasar really does do quite a nice, does provide a really nice way of handling this. In fact, I might be able to do it just like that now. Validate password same. Is that going to work? Testing my JavaScript chops here. Whoops. No. Let me think about this. So that gets called. That function gets called with the value passed in as the first parameter. I guess what you could do is this, right? And then you can get your message into the template, which might be better. So this is just going to return you a true or false, which is kind of what you'd expect there. So I do care about these finicky things because these videos end up getting watched a lot. And I need, I kind of need to respect people's time and attention and make sure I'm giving them good content. So I know these live streams might not be as interesting as the video itself, but I think it's really important to give people a proper kind of full experience. And I don't want to teach them bad code, which is why I'm trying to create something really clean here in the end. All right, so on input, what are we doing? Validate password same, and we'll do it like this. We'll say, there's the value, validate password same, and that passes through the value. Or I want you to display this message. Passwords must match. And now the cool thing about this is when you're in the template and you're in the mode of thinking like, what are my validator rules going to look like? You can kind of see it right there. So you can come in here and change the language in the template, which is where I would think to change the language. I don't know if my assumption's correct there, but anyway. So there we go. We've got that first rule. Now it shouldn't be rocket science to do another one now. So validate password same. What else would we do? Validate password length. Let's go with that. And that'll probably be enough. Password.length has got to be greater than, I don't know, maybe 8. We'll say 7. Or we'll say greater than and equal to, because that's slightly easier to read to me. Greater than or equal to 8. There we go. So now it's really easy to basically plug this in. You just do this. Validate password length Password must be at least 8 characters. Save that. And so the first thing it's going to complain about is the matching. But if they do match, it'll then move on to the password must be at least 8 characters validation rule. So now I can say longer password. Oh, did I type that wrong? Seriously? I thought we just tested this and it worked. Props.model value. Password's the same. Okay, let's do a page refresh there. I don't know what's going on there. Oh, it's because as I update this field, that one is no longer being validated. So if I do that again, it's now validated. So the problem is kind of like the synergy between validating these two. Crap, I didn't think about that. Which actually makes this rule kind of hard to write. Yeah, I don't know. How do you handle this then? I guess I could generalize this a little bit more by doing this dot password and not bothering taking in the value. So I can now just change this to that. And I guess you could potentially then apply that rule down here as well. So let's just check if this works as it is for now. I don't think it will. No, because that needs to be updated again for it to know. Unless you say when this is inputted, it triggers a validation on the form, which I think you actually can do. So let's make it this a ref equal to form. And now I can say const ref, const form is equal to ref. So now I've got a reference to this form. And I'm pretty sure that Quasar actually exposes a way for us to basically run the validators on the form again. So let's look at the methods here. Yeah, validate. Okay, so I should be able to just run validate again on the form. And in order to do that, we basically need to say, how about this? We can say here on input password confirmation value, and I also want you to take the form and call on that form validate. Oops, what's that done? Like that. When you change the value here. D, whoops. D, F. Okay, the problem is it then takes the focus, which is really frustrating, and moves it to the field that was incorrect. So I wonder if you can remove that behavior. No error focus. Oh, of course. Honestly, Razvan is a genius when it comes to APIs. I don't know how much of this was the rest of the team as well, but the API for Quasar is just so good. It's so underrated. I feel like this isn't talked about enough. This is the best API for a component library I've ever seen. Hands down. All right, that is not working. So they're definitely the exact same. But if I take that away and then bring it back again, it then revalidates correctly. But that's working. So that no error focus is working. However, calling validate again. Maybe, okay, so maybe we do this. We say form dot, we have to reset the validation first. This is so funky though. I'm already starting to feel like if somebody's watching this, they're saying, oh, this is gross. Why do I have to do it this way? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're thinking, why isn't this easier? Unless we just save the validation. Yeah, okay, how about we make the validation lazy and then we just do a validate on form submit? That's a better user experience anyway. Okay, I'm going to see what I can do about that. So how do we do lazy validation? So we have to go to Q input now. I bet you this is thought about. They always think about these tiny little things. Validating with Quasar is really well thought out. Lazy rules. It checks validation status against the rules only after field loses focus for first time. Okay, if set to on demand, then it will trigger only when the, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. I can come in here now and basically say, keep those rules. And we're going to say lazy rules here. And we're going to add in there on demand. So if I come down here and do the exact same thing here, we can remove all of this janky crap that really does not belong there anyway. All right, and nobody likes getting validation feedback when they're doing a password input field. It's the worst experience ever. All right, but with an email, I don't think I did set it. I don't think I'm validating that anyway. Oh, who cares? Whoops, hit register there. So now what I want to do is I want to be able to say, when I click on register, validate this form. And that should not be difficult to do. All I have to do is say the register page here. Get rid of what other weird crap I was doing in the past. This is going to be really clean. I think we're going to end up with a nice API, and I'm learning a lot here as well. See, I'm used to doing kind of my own, I've got my own sort of home-rolled validation that we use. We have our own validator functions, and it just makes it super easy for us to validate with our own sort of functional validation library. But we don't really have that luxury. And actually, to be honest, I do most of my validation on the back end. And I see no reason to validate on the front end except for a slightly faster feedback time. Or maybe like I'll do some very light validation on the front end, but usually I'd rather just, you have to write it on the back end anyway. Validation errors in a form is not going to be the thing that slows your app down. So, who gives a crap? Just pass it to the back end anyway. But I can't do that with Firebase because it does such a terrible job, frankly, of giving you validation feedback. I hate the way it's formatted. Anywho, moving on. So when you try and log in, I'm going to get a reference to this form here, ref, and I might have to do some sort of binding here, but we'll see in a second, is equal to form. And now I can easily come down here and say const form is equal to a reference, and it'll be a blank reference to begin with. And then we can say on handle login, let's just get rid of that for now and just simply try and validate it by saying form.value.validate. I don't think that'll work. I think I might have to do some sort of binding there. What's wrong with this? Oh, of course, we'll call this form ref. That's probably a rule of thumb I should start following more often anyway. Yeah, form ref. Let's go for that. What else have I done wrong? Is defined but never used. Oh, crap. Now my bloody linter's going to start complaining. All right, we got through that easily. Can I read properties of undefined reading validate? Form ref. For some reason .value was put in twice there. Form.value. I think that might be because I have to say v-bind is equal to adders. kind of proxy that through, or you might not actually be able to do that with methods. I might literally have to, I don't know, find another way to proxy the method. So we might need to have a method on here called validate that basically proxies to that validate method on the form, which would simply say, we'll change that from form actually to form ref. So we can follow that way of doing it. Okay, there's no more occurrences of that. Good. And now we can say form ref dot value, and then we'll call dot validate. Okay, and I'll return that as well, just to make sure the API is properly proxied there. Now, the problem here is that is not exported. I'm going to have to explicitly export that, I think. So maybe a way I can do that is by saying another script tag here and saying export default. Can I have a second setup like this? I don't know if that's going to work. I don't think it will actually. Yeah. All right, let me think about this. So the problem I'm facing now is how do I call a method when I'm using the script setup API? When using setup sugar. Can I do it like this? Or maybe I add a return in here just in case there is other stuff that I want to expose. Maybe that will work. I don't know. This is good to figure out because I feel like I've hit this problem in the past as well. Okay, it doesn't like that. Can I... But then I think if you have a return value here, it might want me to return everything. So maybe I can look up explicit return view script setup, something like that. What's this? Objects return. Yeah. I don't know how to search for this. I basically want to say, how do I use script setup with that kind of export default functionality you get when you're not using setup sugar? Crap. So expose method script setup, something like that. Maybe I can say manually expose. Manually expose. Oh, it's Lindsay. I do podcasts with Lindsay sometimes. I'm pretty sure that's Lindsay's blog post. Yeah, Lindsay. Okay. So we got script set up. There might be some point where they go through some like edgy cases. We need a method. Oh, what's this? That's kind of cool. Namespace components. No. Define props, define MIPS. Oh, maybe that's what this is. Closed by default. The public instance of the component which will not expose any of the binaries declared. Okay, to explicitly expose properties in a script setup component, use the define expose. Oh, okay. Hello. That looks like what we're looking for. This was just a hole in my knowledge. So now if I go to but I want to make sure my linter is set up properly for this. So define expose like so, save that, come over here, restart my dev environment. So we'll close out of there. So basically what I want to do is come in here and say define expose. And I can now say validate. So basically validate is going to be exposed on this component, which is a really beautiful way of doing this. So you can kind of scroll down and be like, oh, what are the methods on my component? Ah, there they are. I really like that. Oh, I got a message. I bet you it's spam. Let's see. Yep, spam detected. We're getting spam like crazy in Australia at the moment. Serious like spam and people getting what's it called, like phishing attacks and all sorts of awful stuff. Australia's getting targeted hardcore. All right, so we'll close out of that and that. I probably shouldn't have closed those tabs because there's a good chance that I did actually get this wrong. Ha! It worked! We got lazy validation. Okay, this is great because this gives me an opportunity to teach something that I didn't know, which is this define expose part here. And so now we're basically proxying that validate. And what I might actually be able to do here is proxy it like this. Validate is equal to formRef.value.validate. And then I can completely remove that. I reckon that'll work. And I was wrong. Because that's not going to exist yet. Can I use optional chaining now? I believe I can. Let's try that. All right, it worked. Is not a function. All right, but that's going to get exposed, and it looks like it's not reactive. So that validate becoming available wasn't reactive for some reason. So it needs to be, but what you could do is something like this, and maybe do something like this. That's kind of a quick way of, one-liner way of proxying it. That's not too bad to me either. And that kind of gives you the same thing, but it just sort of reduces the code a little bit. Yeah, all right, passwords must match. It says that's okay. Let's remove that. Passwords must match. What about that? What about if there's they match but there's too short? There we go. And the last thing to do is required. But that's already covered, I think. Yeah, password must be at least 8 characters. Beautiful. All right, I think I'm going to take a break, but this is really good. I feel like I found a really clean way to handle our validation, and we don't have to bring in any fancy libraries. And you know what? This is how I always wanted to do it. I feel like Quasar has done such a good job of handling validation within their components that I don't want validation libraries that do all this crap. I just want functions. I just want validation functions, basic stuff where I can say, for example, with this, validate password length. Give it a password and check that the length is correct. Like, without any of this other, extra fancy stuff that I don't really even want to use. So, yeah, if anybody knows of a library like that, then go ahead and let me know, even if you're watching this live stream after the fact. But I'm going to take a break for now, come back to this fresh, and then start working more, hopefully, on Firebase-related stuff. All right.